placement won't be a problem. I don't really remember what was on the bottom left of the screen initially to begin with. That's my page going to update. I don't think I put money to refresh it. Oh, good. It has a category too. Okay, let's see if the audio is good. Audio sounds good. Okay, let's see if the audio is good. Wait a minute. I can't tell. I thought it was fixed there for a second, but I can't tell because, like, it's also picking up my, like, loud volume. If you happen to notice it being fixed while you're unmuted, let me know. Because I don't think I can actually gauge that properly. But anyway, hello everyone. Count Eyes in here. And today we are doing, finally, after much delay, another hashtag Audience of Eldritch streamcast. As per usual, joined by my co-host and frequent voice in my head / JoJo soundboard, Doss the Baron. That's a very unenthusiastic soundboard, but but yeah. But yeah, we apologize that it's taken this long to actually do another episode, but stuff came up. One of us would be sick the whole week, weddings and all kinds of stuff. Like, it was never really had a good opportunity to do another one until now. First thing you notice is, wait a minute, this isn't Resident Evil 5. Well, correct. We both decided to kind of switch out of that. We were enjoying the game, and we do actually still need to beat it, but we're going to do that off stream. It was a good run, though, while it lasted. Thought about it for a bit and decided that the next game I will be playing during the streamcasts is Remothered Tormented Fathers, which, coincidentally, didn't realize until after the fact, actually fits very well with our topic. But before we get into that, no, more than that. But before we get into that, as just a quick rundown of the game, it is a survival horror game that is a spiritual successor to the Clock Tower series. It's developed by an Italian game developer named Chris Darrell and published by Stormmind Games. It's been out for a bit now. I have played some of it, but due to technical reasons, I don't really have a good route to, like, start where I left off at, so I'll be starting a new game. That being said, I have not played a lot, or did not really get that far into it, so some of the stuff will be familiar to me up until a certain point. Yeah, I think that about covers the general overview. So we'll go ahead and start the game up, and we can get into our topic. is finished and unfinished games, which also kind of works with a pretty relevant topic that's kind of been thrown around like a lot in the industry lately, which is the games as a service program, or not program, model. Why is it program?
So, is it all true?
What have you heard already?
That it thickened the bones, it accelerated the healing process and tissue regeneration. Is that all true?
Every word.
But if that's what it was doing, why call it an illness?
The lepidopterans made a nest out of the human body where they could eat and multiply.
It's a weird mix of like
Illness
they
is what
can't
it is.
like people can't tell the difference
Or do you want
between
me to start?
From the beginning.
something that's
I'm
you know
old,
actually
Mr. Manny.
unfinished, like a game
My
preview
memory
game,
is not one of my strong
to
points.
something that is technically
Well,
finished.
for example, why do they call you Madam Svenska?
But
A
it's
name
running,
is just a trace. It is our business card, our identifier.
it's
it
it's
presents
using a
us
games
to the
as a
world.
service model.
But does it tell our story or really describe who we are?
I swear I know 3 or 4 idiots with the same exact name.
Well, yes. But we are not made of that name. It is given to us. Other people choose it for us, whether it suits us or not. It doesn't tell us who we really are. That name will not give us any answers. It is only through growing old that we become the answer to the questions of our childhood. And living in Sweden the last 30 years has definitely inspired this affectionate moniker. And so, Madam Svenska, it is.
And yet you come back to Italy. Why?
Because I forgot. But I also forgot that I had promised to remember.
Tell me.
Please excuse me. Sometimes my memory needs to be jogged. There's always been a song that, as well as the name you refer to so much, has labeled my whole life, has given it a name, and it's from a name. You can't believe how bizarre and sometimes unbelievable my confused memories are to describe that all this began.
I do apologize that we're talking over the intro cutscene, but there's just kind of certain parts of this game that's best to talk, and then there's certain parts that is
If you fly, you lose something.
not 100%, but
Come on, let's dance. We don't have any
it just
chance.
there was just so much to talk about that
Give me a kiss.
we just kind of had to start from like
What you gonna
during cutscene, you know.
If you fly, you lose
But hopefully, despite us talking over it, the subtitles, you can pick up.
Listen to me. The romance leave us free. For me it's to be taken care of.
Yeah, to expand more upon it with some examples, especially the stuff that's relevant in today's industry, climate, I suppose. We have, for one example, Anthem, which was kind of, I mean, I haven't played it, but I'm going to say it was not really deserving of its criticism, and it's a game as a service game. They plan on adding more stuff to it down the line, unless you know something horrible happens, which so far there's no indication of that. Even if we're talking over some of the stuff doesn't actually quite make sense yet. Sorry.
Looks like it's gonna rain again.
But yeah, there was just criticism about Anthem being like, about it, but I'm pretty sure the word like empty, like unfinished, not a true BioWare game was thrown around, something to that extent. Is that accurate, do you think? Imaginary. Although claims to be the first one to start it.
Yes, hello. I'm Dr. Reed from the Santa Margarita Institute.
I'm sorry, but Mr. Felton is no longer a patient.
I know.
Yeah.
This is why I'm here. Hello? Anyone?
Oh, and on topic with Destiny, Destiny 2 wasn't really well received by the community. And now they just recently announced that not only are they adding, this huge content re-overhaul, making it more like a role-playing game, a whole another expansion, all kinds of stuff, and a starting entry point for people who haven't played the game for free. But like all this stuff, and well, for one, they didn't have to do that. But that being said, that's the benefit of a games as a service model, and also in that vein, it shows why people are dumb for just saying, "Oh, Destiny 2 wasn't finished." Like the main point, or the main theme of our topic is finished and unfinished games, but that works very hand in hand with games as a service, because 9 times out of 10, at least it seems to me, the games that the community tends to say, "Oh, it's not finished," are games that are using a games as a service model.
Good evening.
Miss Reed, you already told me at the intercom, and as I already told you, Mr. Felton is no longer a patient at the Santa Margarita
I know.
Institute.
I came here voluntarily, outside the Institute.
So what do you want?
I am personally re-examining your case. Causes, reagents. I strongly believe there are alternative ways and probably other experiments that are worth a try. I am fighting with the Institute
Yes,
to
definitely.
recognize there are other adequate remedies for your husband's
Oh,
pathology.
no, please. I'm just assisting him. I'm his nurse.
I didn't know.
It's okay. I suppose you want to talk to him.
Thank you.
I apologize for the darkness, but Mr. Felton's sight has been damaged and immensely compromised because of the disease. Anyway, I am Gloria. Oh, and please, refrain from smoking inside. Mr. Felton hates the smell of smoke.
Sorry.
please, this way.
Yes, because
Bad habit.
that's
Smoking?
the thing.
Yes, it's such a shame.
It's also
You should quit. You have no idea how bad this is for you. Not only for your
it
health,
also has a
but
lot
it's
to do
also
with
very
what the
expensive.
community would
Money
rather
and time
focus their
wasted.
ire on.
I have
Because
so much to do every day. I couldn't
going
waste
back to what I
time
said
with
at the
such a
start of
bad
this
habit.
stream, that Remothered's
Do
a
you
good,
assist Mr. Felton all day?
relevant game for
Oh
this
no,
topic.
from midday to 8
is
p.m. Then I go back home. I live near here.
Remothered
If needed, he can contact me with
technically
a pager, but that's not often. His
could be
wife
called
takes
an
care of
unfinished
it when
game.
I'm off.
But
What can you tell
nobody
me about
calls it
I met
deadware.
her just a couple of times.
Or,
She's
not
usually
deadware.
out or locked in her bedroom when I'm
Abandonware.
here.
Because one,
I didn't
there's
know.
no reason for them
But,
to
you know,
focus their
she's
ire
home.
on it. It's not made by a company that,
The same song,
that like
over and over.
the community likes to hate on. And two, it's an episodic game. And episodic games inherently don't have a finished narrative right out the gate.
This way, please.
But it's interesting because, like, people don't seem to be as bothered
Mr.
by
Felton
that
will be here in
compared
a few
to
minutes.
games not having, like, content that they would rather games have right out the gate. Now, don't get me wrong, though. I'm not saying that Remothered being an episodic game or episodic games in general is a bad thing. I'm not even remotely saying that. I'm just saying it's interesting that, like, with as much hatred and games get for, running games as a service models, and being, quote-unquote, abandonware, you'd never really see that kind of focus on episodic games. It's almost, I want to say it's almost like a double standard. Like, they only choose to use that whole abandonware, like, put
Do you
down
believe in God, miss?
if it,
Well,
serves their narrative.
It would be too easy, wouldn't it? I believe in people's willpower. Everything else is not God, but an aptitude or mankind's
makes
cruelty.
This is the kind of fairy tale I prefer at my age. When you're worn out from an incurable disease, you start having some doubts. Why is there so much life in such small but lethal creatures? An arbiter, that's all we
For
need.
what? It's wrong and crazy. It's human nature.
That same nature in which we are equals to those ants eating each other. But, pardon me, I forgot my manners. Please, sit down. Dr.
Yeah.
Reed, I suppose.
Sorry, Mr. Felton. Pleased to meet you.
So you already met Gloria?
Yes, she let me in.
She's a great reference, extremely hardworking, but back to us. I don't recall seeing beautiful doctors like you at the Institute, Dr. Reed.
I am flattered, Mr. Felton. I arrived at the Institute just a few months after you left. And you left because?
Inadequacy of the sanitary treatments within the structure.
That's right. And in a few words?
In a few words, they didn't know how to treat my case, and they left me there to die.
But it seems that other issues took over.
I once or twice refused to go through exams.
Mr. Felton, is there anything I can do for you?
Oh, Gloria, yes. See if Dr. Reed needs anything.
Oh, no.
May I offer you a cup of tea or coffee? Espresso?
No, thank you.
As you wish. How about you, Mr. Felton?
No, thank you. I'll keep entertaining our guest. You can go now.
You're diagnosed. 1958?
Yes, indicatively. Some friends and I contracted the disease while traveling to Egypt, and it got worse.
In addition to the disease, the first exam showed some inconsistency. Some hormonal deficiency, overdose of non-prescribed drugs, opiates, Minoxidil? Wasn't it recalled in the mid-60s?
Doctor, don't you think
And
that
then,
nowadays
not
there are
even
ways to
remotely
obtain
blame
drugs
them for
without any
tearing
prescription?
down an entire game
I believe
company.
so. According to your file, you still receive your disability pension. Even better, it seems that the beneficiary is your wife, Ariana Gallo.
Exactly.
Gearbox.
She's the one who takes care of me. when Gloria is off.
How about your daughter?
It's the daily.
My daughter?
The Colonial Marine.
Celeste has never come back home.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
She was adopted, am I right?
The investigators confirmed that she intentionally left. They never suspected a kidnapping since there was no ransom request.
How about Weeman? Wasn't he a suspect?
A flash in the pan, an idiot who brought confusion by sending warnings and threats.
And her birth parents?
Dr. Reed, young girls often decide to just go. And this is what my daughter decided to do.
Jennifer.
What did you say?
At times, you
I
would
believe the
call her
company was
Jennifer.
called Day One Studios.
My
Mr.
daughter.
Felton,
was
what
same
has
people
really
who
happened to your
made
daughter?
I just told you.
How about the
expansion
off-the-record
for
version?
I am
video
not
games.
sure where you're trying to go with this, but I won't tolerate. I don't have the strength for this now.
And I forget the other one.
I know you've been trying to forget her, but this picture might help you to.
They made other things
What
as well,
is this?
but that's why.
Where did you get this picture?
Isn't she your daughter? Celeste, or has you called her? Jennifer?
I asked you a question.
Back of the picture says Jennifer.
There is no Jennifer!
Thought I was stupid, didn't you, Mr. Felton? Do you really think I'd come here without knowing what I'm
Who
talking
are
about?
you, and why did you come here? Did you come to my home to threaten me with your condescending
Threatening
tone?
you? So maybe I should ask your wife then.
She's not home.
Seems like she is.
Mr. Felton, I just talked to the director of the Institute on the phone. They have never heard of Dr. Reed. She is not what she claims to be.
Well, Miss Reed, if that is your real name, your time here has ended. Please, leave my property. Miss Gloria will escort you out.
Please follow me.
Mr. Felton, please, tell me what you did to your daughter!
Good evening.
Follow me.
Mr. Felton.
I believe so, yeah.
You know the way. How do you even...
How do I do what?
How do you even sleep at night? You use people's lives regardless of the pain you cause. The Feltons have been through a lot. And they are good people.
Gloria, a young girl disappeared.
We all know the story, unfortunately. A burden that the Feltons will have to carry for the rest of their lives. Celeste just left them.
If that was the case, there was a motivation behind it. And it threatened her life.
And then don't forget Anime Gate. I faintly remember that, yeah. Yes, and on that note, even though that's usually the reason behind the angry focus of the community, they use the excuse of, like, the game's unfinished because that is a, like, almost like a trigger word that can be used against people who just don't quite understand. And if they hear that, then they think, oh, this game's bad. It's unfinished. Like, I'm not gonna buy this now. Like, I actually know somebody who, despite enjoying the series, would not buy Fallout 76 due to the fact that, based on what they've heard from outside sources, it's an unfinished, it's a quote-unquote unfinished game.
Yeah, and it's probably one of the worst ones that you can get, especially, like, because I'm sure I know who you're talking about, not naming names or anything like that, but I'm sure I know who you're talking about, and that's a big one in the community for people who are opponents to certain companies. Those people, and I'll be real, it's usually YouTube personalities. I'm not going to call them journalists or anything like that. That gives them way too much credit.
Yeah, personalities are content creators, like either one works.
Yeah. But the people who are, like, adamantly against a thing, those also tend to be the ones, like, that people will listen to. Not because they genuinely believe that this person is right or this person is wrong or what have you. It's because they also don't like the thing that they don't like. It's that mob mentality kind of thing where, like, everyone can agree to hate a thing because really doesn't need to be much more to it. Just, you hate it, I hate it, we are friends. And I really don't like that mentality. I'll be super real. Like, only hanging out in circles with people that you agree with is not a good thing. Like, you need somebody outside of your own personal thoughts, likes and dislikes, so that you can form a more informed opinion. If I just sat over here and I was just like, hey, I'm only going to hang out with, like, Eisen. He's the only person I'm going to talk to because he agrees with me on all of my points. We could both be so wrong that it's not even funny, yet because we both adamantly believe what we think, that's never going to change. There is a Halo Master Chief Collection update. Wow, that Wares 2 update is 13.44 gigs. Wow. But yeah, I think a lot of games benefit from games as a service, as opposed to just being like, here.
Yes,
it
absolutely.
I would say it definitely depends on the style of game. Like, go ahead.
Just the aspect of devs being able to continue to support their game even after launch, outside of traditional paid DLC, is and leaves the door open for all kinds of opportunities.
Yeah, games that they come out. While it may be the full thing, once it's done, it's done. Now there's definitely games that have come out, one and done, that are amazing. They just I couldn't think of anything that I would add to it. But then there's games that the extended content, because of its games as a service model, have made it 10 times better. Like Star Wars Battlefronts 2. This is going to be a weird one. Battlefront, even if it came out and didn't have microtransactions with it, in the first 3 days of the exclusive, if you had EA Access launch, even if there was no microtransactions at all, people would not have been happy with it because they were like, oh, I feel like it doesn't have as much as I believe it should have. Half valid, half garbage. Your belief in what a product should or shouldn't have doesn't really matter as much as the product being a complete product and fully functioning day one, which is what most people call for. But with Battlefront 2, it's continued to grow. We've gotten new heroes, new vehicles, new units, maps, game modes. They keep putting all of this in there, and it doesn't cost anything extra because it's a service. They want you to keep playing it. There is some microtransaction things, I think, that they added to where you could buy skins, but that's it. And I'm not even sure if I haven't actually looked on there for that particular thing because you don't need it. It's a cosmetic thing. But they're going to be having an update that's going to be coming out, and that will add another map and another unit and another vehicle. So they are continuously this game, and it's great because they listen to the feedback from the community, and they were like, all right, this is what y'all said you wanted, this is what we're going to do, which I think it's probably the best way to run it.
People hated Battlefront 2 when it came out for a variety of reasons. Once they started updating the game significantly, people stopped complaining about it. But at the same time, they don't actually recognize the developers for adding more content to the game, because it's easier to complain about something than it is to praise something. Apparently for people.
Well, I would agree.
That's
with that. I would also say that
horror games too, just Star Wars.
Well, I'd say that Star Wars, it came out a year ago. And I believe that other games have come out since then from EA and from DICE. So their ire towards Battlefront was because of the EA thing. So now they're switching it to DICE. DICE is catching flack recently because they added a specialized character to Battlefield 5 that you can purchase for the Germans. And people are angry about it because they're like, oh, you're using a Nazi to sell a product. This product is set in World War II. And unfortunately, somebody's got to be the bad guy at some point. So like, I could understand wanting to dress up your bad guys.
Yeah, it's a weird mix. Like, there's good and bad things about a games as a service model. It's not a perfect thing by any means. But, like, the primary examples of the good things, other than what we stated already, is for one, and this is something that people don't really, consider, but for one, career longevity. It gives developers more time to actually work, because some companies, once you finish your game, if there's not a product that's lined up already, you have the potential of being laid off. They don't have any use for you anymore. It's a lot of AAA companies work.
Very true. And also, I know a lot of people out there get out there and they screech, what about the artists? What about the, people that aren't at the forefront of gaming? The people who aren't developers, who aren't level designers, who aren't programmers. People ask, what about them? Games as a service keeps them around too, because the artists start to develop, levels, characters, weapons, things like that. They start adding whatever it is to that game. So whenever I see people who want to do the, think of the artist, it's like, do you continue to support games afterwards? And they're like, no. Then why are you worried about them if you want this company to fail? All the artists there go away too. It's not just a developer that you don't like. It's not just, this, that, the other. It's a whole company. And whenever you want, a portion of that company to die, or you want that company to die, you're being a disingenuous cunt. I'll be 100%.
Are you here?
I see it all the time.
Interrupt. The whole part is beginning.
Oh no. Not about this. Oh, the goddamn grammar.
Please, Mrs. Felton.
Searching through cabinets while we were talking.
Is that where your fear of moths come from?
What happened, my dear? The record player got jammed again, right? Yes, I know. You keep on telling me we need to buy the new gadgets on the market. Promise. How can I say no to you? Now get some rest, love. My little Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Not a fan of that right there. But I hear people that want to defend like artists and things like that who are in the industry, and then in the same breath say, "I wish the studio would close for any reason."
Welcome to the stream. Sorry if I missed that.
But yeah, no, like games as a service help keep people like that in an actual job.
This is gonna be the part where it's a bit harder for me to talk because
you're doing the sneak. But yeah, I feel like because like with everything, nothing is perfect. You said that already. But to just 100% dislike the concept of games as a service, I feel that's a bit ignorant.
yeah.
I mean, to just fundamentally, I mean, I guess you could be like, oh, I don't like games that aren't finished when they come out. But if that's the case, you probably also dislike MMOs. You dislike anything that's going to have DLC. Because that means that there was more stories to tell that they didn't tell in their main game.
I'm sorry. I think it's okay. Okay. It's about the same. Yeah. So
Hold on real quick. I think
that's. Do what? What? I didn't hear what you said. Hello? Did you say something?
It's called away by the baby. When I turned the corner, she finger shot me. And I was like, ha ha ha, Dad, you're dead. So yeah.
It's like you said something before that, though.
Oh, I said I'd be right back.
Oh, okay. But yeah, that's one of the pros, the unrecognized pros of games as a service models. Another pro is just the longevity of a game. Let's see here. Wait a minute. No, maybe not. 'Cause, you know, some games, due to them just not having a games as a service model and just kind of being done, like once it comes out. Once you know, beat the story, you're kind of done with it. Like, you know, there may be some incentive to, like, do more, but it depends on the person, and sometimes there's just not any incentive, period. Now, in contrast, a game that runs a games as a service model has the potential to live far past its launch date. Warframe, for example, has maintained itself for years now, and it's, from what I've heard, doing rather well. And now, on top of that, they just the developers, the Digital Extremes, just announced that they're doing another game with a games as a service model, a Avengers game, which was announced at the Square Enix conference last night, and their whole plan for that game is its story. Its story is going to essentially continue on for as long as they want it, like, to carry it on. They'll just keep expanding upon it. I mean, that's essentially what I picked up from the conference. You could add to that if you expand upon that, but that's what it sounded like to me.
Well, they made the comment that essentially the Avengers game will last around a decade. They're going to try to support it for the next 10 years. Well, we have heard that before, with them not being truthful. That's a company that people also, like, usually get hyped behind. And it was Bungie. Bungie said that they would support Destiny for a minimum of a decade, and Destiny 2 has been out for a while now.
Sorry guys. Slightly panicked. Oh shit. Sorry, I just had like a small panic there. What was I saying?
Holy shit. So I accidentally backed out into Twitch. Dr. Disrespect is live right now. He really is like 6'8", dude. Like, everybody else is like shoulder height to him. What's happening?
Oh, I believed it.
I kinda didn't. But yeah, 100%.
100%
He's
believed that.
wow.
Go ahead and save here since I have lots more for that. But yeah, back to God, I thought I heard him again. Back to the Avengers game. Like I'm gonna be real. I'm not a like hardcore comic book fan by any stretch of the imagination. But regardless of that, the potential opportunity for a game to have, you know, a story that will last for that long is pretty great.
Well, and they've also, I believe, said that it is not going to be it's not going to be the Avengers like you think of them. This is actually going to cover a lot of brand new original stories.
Yeah, it's their own. Hold the fuck. Run, run. Oh shit! I don't know where I'm going. Shoot! Away! Away!
Stop! Bitch! Don't go away. Would you like me to enjoy your stupid game?
Right. Oh.
So, you like to go around and rummage in other people's things?
I'm sorry, guys. That was just very urgent.
I need to take my pills.
Okay.
That old man bare ass, though, man.
But yeah, it's their own take on the game. The story. And despite my mixed opinions of Warframe, or at least
E-I-E-I-O. And on his farm he had a sickle. E-I-E-I-O. E-I-E-I-O. E-I... I need another session.
I do not like hearing him, man.
Need it.
at least my mixed opinions Warframe. Irregardless of that, I am interested to see what they can.
This goodbye will be the chance to reach my land for me, and then a whole new world is calling us.
I'll make a side comment here. He's oddly lingering, and usually he kind of wanders off after a bit.
There's nothing left to eat. It's all molded.
There's really no telling, man. But yeah, I would say what we are attempting to say is not that you should just forgive anybody who is doing a games as a service model just because they're doing games as a service doesn't mean that doesn't mean they're immune from criticism.
Right.
So we are not just adamantly 100% like, oh man, games as a service, you have to accept it now. You have to let it go. Talk bad about them. Like, you still need to hold them responsible. You need to do that with every company.
There was a game called, this was a while ago, most people probably forgot about it, or it may not even known it existed, but there was a game called something to the extent of Blast Brawl 2. And but actually, I don't remember if there was a number or not. That may not be accurate, but it was like Blast Brawl, basically. And this was sort of the start of the game preview program on the Xbox side of things. And it's a weird one because it was initially advertised as a... Oh shit. I went the wrong way. It was initially advertised as a game preview game, but for certain reasons it did not pass the qualifications of a game preview game, and the developer decided that it was best to make it a, quote-unquote games as a service game, which was horrifically a bad idea, because not only was the game initially made around the game preview program to begin with, it didn't fit the games as a service model. Literally, the dev had aspects of the game that were just fundamentally missing. And he basically has free reign to add aspects of the game whenever he wanted, but it could be, 3 to 4 months pass, and then he decides to add something into the game. And honestly, to this date, despite how long the game's been out, I don't think it has all of its content. I think there's still certain aspects of it that's missing content.
Well, so that's a great example of using games as a service as a crutch to get out of genuine responsibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the fact that he failed to pass game preview and then said, well, then it's going to be a game as a service. I'm going to constantly update it to make it better. That's an insult to everybody. And it also makes it that much harder for actual as a service developers to avoid the stigmata that exists.
Yeah. And I tried my best to sort that out with certain people at the ID at Xbox program. I'm not going to name any names, honestly. I don't remember their names accurately. But it was kind of one of those scenarios where, due to the Blast Brawl game not qualifying for the game preview program, it was just kind of it doesn't qualify, so that's it. There was really nothing the ID at Xbox program could do, so essentially the developer got away with a loophole that unfortunately just kind of gave him leeway to do whatever the heck he wanted with the game.
And it's things like that that make people say, you know, games as a service are bad.
Yeah.
There's nothing left to eat.
They go down the stairs.
I hear him yelling about nothing left to eat.
Oh yeah, shit, he's roaming around there. That's not where I want to be. Shit. Okay, time to go down there. I think I have something. Yeah, that's at least one example of the game as a service model being a negative. But I will point out that that particular example is slightly askew, and only in the fact that the game had mentioned Blast Brawl 2, which I hope I'm saying that right. It could be like Bloody Brawl 2. I'm not 100%. It had a weird title, but nonetheless, the game had mentioned wasn't supposed to be a games as a service game. It just became one due to essentially what boils down to the developer forgetting to check something off. As dumb as that sounds. Oh, I remember what to do now.
Well, he might have forgotten to check something off, or however you want to word that. But the fact that he used games as a service to get away with his put it in there, baby. To get away with it is probably the worst. And if people use that as an example of games as a service, like just I don't know. It's just bad. You should be more informed than that as a like as a consumer.
I guess essentially what we're trying to say is, despite the positives of a games as a service model, we don't really support the concept of using it as a crutch to be lazy. Granted, it being quote unquote lazy is subjective to certain people, but lazy in the sense that they use that model as an excuse to not work on the game in a timely manner. Also, that being said, there's a difference between game preview or early access for PC and
Can't take anymore.
games as a service. game preview games are actually inherently unfinished because you're playing essentially a early build of the game that's not finished. Games as a service game, despite some people's belief, are actually finished. They just don't have a lot of content compared to something that doesn't use a games as a service model. So, that being said, it's not right to use a games as a service as an excuse to, not work on your game in a timely manner, but at the same time, it's also not meant for early access games. It's meant for games that it's meant for games that are inherently finished. Like the main premise of the game is already present in its release build. But things can be added onto the game.
It is to further a game and augment the base play of it with content that the community actually wants, as opposed to like just making whatever or just being done in general.
I swear there was something in this room. Maybe I'm wrong. So yeah, it's a thing like some people just don't seem to understand the difference between game review and games as a service. And I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself. Sometimes I have a tendency to forget what I said already. I'm not sure if that was something I have mentioned, but just what I like, reiterate the point nonetheless. Like, people will say, oh, like we talked about before, the game's unfinished. But simply just realize that, or simply just, the game actually is finished. it's really, unless special circumstances like the game I mentioned earlier, Blast World 2, 9 times out of 10, games that are accused of being unfinished are actually finished. What the developers set out to do is present in the release build of the game.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the criticism is probably just from people not liking what am I? You ever thought that like humanity is doomed and you should just stop caring?
Yes.
Yeah, apparently there's a new body modification thing people are doing called a conch removal, and it's where they remove the inside of like the ear lobe. Like I don't know how to describe it. Like
strange, but I have a somewhat of a grasp of what you're saying.
Yeah, it's weird.
To the gate.
Man. People.
What else have we not touched on? I'm sure there's more. We talked about Anthem. We talked about Destiny. Talked about Avengers.
Let's see. Anthem, Destiny, Avengers, Star Wars. Actually, something that I do find interesting is that
I need to get out of here.
you have... trying to think of a good way to word it. So you have Anthem, and you have people out there complaining about the crunch of game cultures, and then you have those same people being upset that Anthem's not being updated quick enough. Like, don't be that fucker.
Yes, I agree. That's always just really. It's unfortunate, but there's a tendency for the community to be very. What's the word?
Shitty.
Title.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. there's this horrible tendency of entitlement that tends to be a common trend with the community. And something that just occurred to me, people hate, like there is a very significant section of the community, portion of the community that absolutely despises game preview games because one, it's quote. Oh my God, how did I not go in here? It's quote on. Oh shit! I remember this room. It's quote unquote unfinished. Or wait a minute. My thought process is getting backwards. Sorry. Okay, it's not quote unquote unfinished. Game preview games are inherently unfinished, but people hate game preview games because they're unfinished. But also because they feel like it's some kind of like horrible crime that like how dare developers make us pay for games that aren't finished.
Well,
It's stupid. It's beyond stupid.
Yeah, the entitlement of gamers is quite incredible. Like I think that's part of the like that's part of the problem that we have with games as a service, because people are like, well, I'm buying this, it should be hopefully done. And why that usually works for you goofed, he's gonna come and
I meant to run and then come back and get the handle. Now I gotta run after getting the handle. Oh no, it's rope tied. And shit. I don't want to be here.
it's just on the other side of the door when you open it. But yeah, so like, people are like, yo, I want my game to be done when it comes out. And that's definitely understandable. Like, 100%. And people use the example like, well, you wouldn't, like, you wouldn't buy a half-done movie. You wouldn't, you wouldn't do this, you wouldn't do this. But games are fundamentally different than a lot of things that we like interact with. Like you watch movies, you read a book, like there's not a lot of like interactions that you would get. So I feel like people apply that kind of logic to to other things.
And as much as people don't understand games as a service models and complain about them, it's the same for game preview program. Game preview program or early access games. Now, as stated before, neither of us are 100% supportive of game preview program games as well, because like anything else, you can take advantage of the system as well. Not necessarily in the same way as games as a service models, but nonetheless, you can still take advantage of it. But that being said, game preview program, or let me just shorten that. Early access games are useful, or not even useful per se, but they serve a purpose in that it's not the devs, like ripping you off by.
What am I seeing? What are you being attacked by?
Moths.
Moths?
Yeah. It's a weird quick time event. Yeah, it's not it's not the devs taking advantage of you by just releasing an unfinished game and being like, hey, pay for my broken, unfinished game. Well, I say broken loosely. Not all early access games are inherently broken. Some are just perfectly functional, but 6 chapters are missing. It really does depend on the game itself. But back on track. It's not that they're ripping you off or anything. It's really a great concept, and just people don't understand it. They're letting you do 2 things. First thing, being a part of the community as the game gets developed in real time. Now, this isn't the case for all of them, but most of the time it is. Most early access games tend to support, or let me rephrase that, most early access game developers tend to support and welcome, feedback and...
You think I'm enjoying your stupid game?
A little bit. I think
This is not a place for tourists!
Oh, take this!
No, I didn't.
Fucking cocksucker!
Brad Eisen.
There's a hiding spot. I don't remember the other hiding spots. Oh no, they went the wrong way.
Noise! Still here? What are you doing here? Stop, you stupid bitch!
Oh God, yeah, there he is right there. I'll give it to you guys.
You like to snoop inside people's houses.
Okay. I do apologize.
You weren't invited!
Caught me off guard. Ooh.
This goodbye will be the chance to reach my land for me. A whole world is calling.
Out of here.
But yeah, people just inherently hate them because they don't understand. Inherently hate early access games because they don't understand them, and just refuse, pretty much refuse to see the benefits of them.
Yeah, let's. I think the main thing here is that with a lot of those particular people, it's the instant gratification They buy a game and they want it to be there. These are usually also the people who say, I want my game completely finished, and then in the same breath say, where's my DLC?
Going back to the entitled part of the community. I think I'm going to... No, I take that back. I ain't doing shit. I ain't doing shit. I ain't doing shit. Yeah, going back to the entitled part of the community that we talked about before.
I can't take any more.
It's unfortunate, really, like both early access games and games as a service games are beneficial to the industry. I absolutely enjoyed going through the development progress of Layers of Fear. Layers of Fear was a game preview game when it first came out, and it was absolutely fascinating to see them slowly work their way up to full release and just kind of be a part of that process. But, you know, people just don't see it that way.
Well, some people are not... I think, excuse me, I still got this cough. I'm just dying. I think we appreciate things that happen within the within the gaming community more so than people who are just consumers of products that come out. Does that make sense?
And in that same regard,
oh, what is this? Mythic Quest? Oh, this looks kind of cool. I'm sorry. Look, I still have E3 running. I apologize.
To be honest, I forgot how to heal. I thought saving did that, but it doesn't, apparently. Which is problematic. That's not good. Anyway, but it works the same for games as a service games. People, immediately complain that the game's unfinished, or all the reasons we listed before, but they fail to see that, my game that I bought is going to last for more than, my one initial playthrough of, the campaign. And that they don't see that.
I would also say that, there is some deserved criticism of unfinished games, either as a service or as a preview game, or things like that, because there have been several games, throughout all sorts of different types of, I don't want to call it history, because that's stupid. But we've had quite a few games that have come out, and they are not updated regularly, or maybe even at all. There's some games that exist in that weird limbo of I'm a game preview game, but I'm never going to be updated. Like, I will stay this way forever. And the same thing with like a game as a service. The really big problem with games as a service is if the game is not liked by a community as a service, there's no reason to continue it. It's just
Or
costing.
in the most extreme scenario, going back to what I previously talked about, how this is how episodic games are inherently games as a service games as well, since sorry, I misspoke. Episodic games are inherently unfinished games as well. There could be like a worst case scenario incident that'll happen where, due to some financial issues of some sort, the company goes under and the remaining episodes don't happen, and that sucks. And it's it's a very worst case scenario thing, so you can't be like, oh, how dare the developers go under or anything. But I say that some people will regardless. But that being said,
it is a gamble, I think, is what we're just what you're trying to get to, is that purchasing a game as a service or a game preview game, it is a gamble. There are people who've definitely been burned by them before. There's people who there's people who have known people or heard of experiences where people are burned by games. But I feel like just the initial, like, oh, well, this is how a game preview game works, like, in a negative, in a light, whatever. I feel like it is ignorant. It comes out of a place where somebody's been in a situation or known of a situation. It's kind of like when people say, like, I don't trust these type of people because of things I've heard or things I've dealt with.
Yeah. Slightly off topic. I don't know how well you've been paying attention, but have I tried to use the metal cable to get the thing out of the bathtub yet?
I don't believe so. I don't remember seeing you at the bathtub at all. I'll be honest.
Sorry, just had to get a double check, because it's hard to keep track of what I have and haven't done in this game.
Understandable.
And on top of that, try to keep a coherent flow.
Yeah, it's
slightly
rough sometimes.
my inability to heal.
Have you actually... So, do you even have a healing item?
No. I have defensive items, conversion items. So there must be just one somewhere that I haven't found. But I know for a fact that I can't just be like by default injured the whole time.
I need to get out of here.
I don't know.
Excuse me.
I can't take any more.
It was close, but
Yeah, you keep making noises. The tile in this bathroom gives me anxiety, dude.
Why is this not working? I swore that would be like the perfect thing to unclog a drain. It ain't working.
You.
Nothing.
I don't know. I was gonna make a suggestion, but I genuinely don't know.
This is the only issue that I have with this game, and Outlast was kind of the same way in that regard. I sometimes find difficulty in progressing for these kind of games because they tend to just be like, hey, do this thing. We're not going to quite tell you what it is, but do this thing, and, you know, make sure not to get stabbed. Like, it's a minor grievance with these type of games. Minor personal grievance. But, it is a slight problem, though, at the same time. But yeah, hopefully, my attempts at keeping coherent thought has been relatively functional. We were very passionate about this particular topic. Baron came up with the idea to talk about it a few weeks ago, maybe. And then, like, as we just kind of had difficulty coming up with the time to do the streamcast again, more things relevant to the topic just kind of sprung up while we sorted out schedules and whatnot.
I feel like we have. I feel like we've talked about, yeah, pros, cons.
Are both.
Oh, you know what? It just occurred to me. As games as a service.
Yeah.
MMOs. MMOs 100% are a game as a service. Whether it be on the PC, whether it be on the console, whatever. Like, and like, it's very important to note that that is a great example of games as a service. I know there'll probably be somebody somewhere who will try and be like, oh well, look at all these failed MMOs. And that's just a matter of not being able to dedicate the money and time to it that some people normally would.
I remember when Anthem came out, people were comparing it to MMOs and saying, oh, like, Anthem doesn't have as much content as World of Warcraft has, or something to that extent. Do you remember that? There was like one particular writer from a website said that.
Oh, yes, he did. He compared it to MMOs.
Dr. Reed! Do you really think you'll
I
get
forgot
away
about
with
that.
this? This house
Yeah,
is
yeah.
not open to the public.
Nobody ever called us. Oh, I wasn't paying attention. I looked away. For like a split second, I looked at the chat, and I forgot that was a thing as a game.
This house is not open to the public. Still here?
After you follow me around and go through that door.
I will make you regret you were born.
Wow. Yeah, just thought I bust through that one door.
Noisy little.
That's not what I wanted.
But yeah, no, like MMOs, World of Warcraft, it's a lot of
This is
props
not a place for tourists.
just continuing to exist, essentially. Man, how many stabs is this old dude gonna take?
Ah. What are you doing here? Don't go away. I have a... There. I knew it. You weren't invited.
Oh! Well, but yeah, like what is the name of that? World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is 200% a games as a service. No, baby, not right now. But those games don't get like flack for not having stuff.
Oh, you got to be kidding.
Even when it first came out, like I knew people who were like, "Man, this will one day be great," and they poured money into it. But now that kind of thought process is like frowned upon, unless it's a thing you like. If it's a thing you like, then oh yeah, by all means, pour hundreds of thousands of dollars into this particular thing, and you know, I'd say hundreds of thousands. I've known some people who've dropped like $1,000+ on like games, like a singular game. Like they'll purchase like, you know, all the stuff for a game.
Oh yeah, World of Tanks.
World of Tanks, any of those kind of things, which are games as a service.
100%. Yeah.
But you know, things like World of Tanks. I've seen some people drop a
Plunger.
just put the. You know what? That might work. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my thought too. I was like, well, how about that? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't remember what I was saying. I just kind of am drawing a blank right now. This exact second.
I apologize. You were talking about people putting a ton of money into games like
Oh.
Tanks.
Yeah, things like that, and people find that like acceptable. Games that are like World of Tanks, or you know, other games of that nature.
Who likes to...
But but if you want to support a game that's not quote unquote out yet, it's not finished, it's you know, like a game preview game, or it's a
This house is not open to the...
like, you know, it's a game preview game, or it is a games as a service on like something that's not been out for a little while. Like that is not acceptable.
Take my pills.
Yeah, and the World of Tanks slash World of Warships, the airplane one, they make tons of money off of people just buying tons of like ships, tanks, whatever. And you know, not saying that's a bad. Not saying it's a bad thing, but it's just kind of a weird double standard. Like, kind of, which is pretty much what you were saying, I think. But
Yeah.
you know, oh, like, this is horrible. Like, games as a service or early access games are horrible, but at the same time, you know, World of Tanks is games as a service, but it's okay to front $100 on tanks.
Yeah.
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Wow. Less than 2 weeks after opening its first Colorado Springs restaurant, Racing's Cane's has broken ground on a second location in the northern part of the city.
Go ahead.
There's, it was actually pretty much what you were saying, though. Like the fact that some people are, because I feel like consoles get a bad rap. And I think it's just because it's a console, really. I don't think that's like people are just willing to kind of shit on things that don't fall within their proper thought process.
Don't do that. So I hate to do this. Usually our streamcasts are 3 hours long. Then again, we were off schedule anyway to begin with. Normally we do these at 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Time on Fridays. But since we've had so many delays, we decided to... Okay. Since we had so many delays, we decided to do it today. That being said, I unfortunately have to cut this short. I do think we covered a lot of our topics, though. We'll try to do another streamcast next Friday. The times I mentioned. Scheduling works out. Thank you for sticking around and watching this. Feel free to hit the follow button to be notified of future streams, and look forward to next time.